What are we doing? I'm just spacing out. Alright. Alright. Where's my Visual Studio? There. Oop. Fucking Monday. You know it. Alright. Particle. We're meant to make a particle system today. I'll try. I've been sick for for a few weeks. I think it's getting better today, but it's like getting deflated. We'll see. We'll try. Let's try. We can do it today. Hopefully. So we have particles. Why let's just do this. Particle needs a position. Needs an index. That's all it should take, I think. I'm not sure. It should have like a sorting layer override. Maybe. But we also need to set position raw to position. Index. This dot index equals index. And this is where we have to have like a particle database, I guess. Hold on. Needs to have a time index. It needs to animate. That means that it also needs to have a sprite and stuff, but I was saying that I should break out the rendering. And the particle does need to have a modified position. Or should it? No. It needs to have a sorting layer override. But this should be different. Like, I mean, there are questionable things in terms of like how the animation system works. Like, for the animation system here, I'm kind of fetching the sprites and setting the sprites inside of the action and stuff. But I feel like that's kind of unnecessary to some degree. I mean, it's not really, but kind of. I feel like you could just load the animation data and then you just read it from the database. Instead of like putting it inside of the object, you just have like sprite array and then you just read it. Like, that's all. You don't have to really generate like an animation like I'm doing here. That's kind of stupid. But it also doesn't matter that much. It's a mindset that's, in my opinion, really hard to get away from. And it's like, it's what I see with everyone else. Who I see like start programming. Like you have this mindset about how it should work. And it's usually more like game-like. Like you think of everything more like a video game system than it is programming. And it is kind of hard to get away from that. Because here, like, I'm trying to like equip things almost onto the object. I'm trying to like set the animation onto the object. And then the object will like own the animation and can do the animation. While in reality, I feel like you should just load it, like globally. And then the ability or the character itself just contains an anime, like a time index. Then when you update, you just read the animation from the system instead of reading it from yourself. You know? Like that's just smarter. Like if you have like 10 spearmen, why do you have 10 animations loaded when you could have one loaded? It just doesn't really make sense. But the question then is like, how do you load it? Because if I have a database like this, the entire point here is that I don't have it loaded. So when I request an animation, it gets loaded into the object from the path. Like we're fetching it from disk. I think that's kind of dumb. But it also doesn't really matter. It would matter if optimization was like not just optimization, but like strict optimization. I think it would matter. But here it doesn't. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I pretty much have to make the change for the particles. Particles shouldn't contain animation data. That's stupid. So how do we handle that? Because I also... It's kind of difficult. Because what I'm thinking is you have a system like this where you just have like a bunch of statics that you can call that will load the animation, right? But instead of loading this into a character, you load it into an animation dictionary inside of your main script. But the problem with that is now you need a way to access it, and the logical way is to make it be a dictionary so that you can just have a static key to always access that same animation, right? But that means that every single animation in the entire game has to be indexed. Which is doable, but it sucks giant ass. It's not something I really want to do. Unless I can, like, dynamically index them. Right. Like, this is a static. Like, I don't feel like I can. Because these are all statics. So they're not, like, necessarily being created. This is just me doing some stuff here. No, this is just a... This is just a method, right? So it's not being generated at all until it's called. I'm just thinking of how I could dynamically index these without having to manually set a number for each, or have to have like a huge enum. I'm almost feeling like it should be based on files. Like you load in, or you read the file. But that's also like, you know, like if I somehow could index them based on like which number they are in the file structure on disk. But that's also like, doesn't that mean that I need to like load in everything in order to check that? just don't know. Like this is. Like I guess maybe I could just access it by reference. Like I guess. So I suppose a reference isn't any larger than an integer necessarily. So 64-bit applications. I don't know if they still make the, like, if it's 32 by default. Whatever. But the difference there is that well, I'm just thinking, because if I make this the index be a reference instead of just an index, then we can just store everything that's loaded in a list. And then this can be like particle data or some bullshit. And that's a reference type. Instead of a data type, it's a reference type. Is there any more tea in my pot? A little bit. Mm. But then the question is, like, how do I structure particle data? Do I make a particle data class and then I'm... No, I don't want to do that. Because I was like, do I make every... I mean, I could. Do I make every single particle type be like a unique class that inherits from particle data? Or do I just make like particle data in the same way the animations work, where they just fetch an LOT animation like this with just a static method? I just don't know, really. Holy shit. Man, I don't know. Why did it have to be today that I have to figure this out? But how does it even work? Doesn't it like work that way by default? Because a reference type... No. A reference type, it does need to be stored somewhere. Because I was thinking, like, but what if you just put it into the particles? Like, isn't it just a reference to somewhere in memory? But it is. But I have to load it, create the reference type instance, put it somewhere, and then point the object towards that. So I do need to create a new instance in a list. In the main controller. Then the question is, how do I delete it later? Like, how do I know when all the particles are gone? Do we just handle that via emitters? Like when we delete an emitter, we check if there are more emitters, and if all the emitters for that index is gone, we delete it. Or do I store references to everything inside of the particle data itself? That sounds annoying. I think I wouldn't do anything like that. I think the way I really want things to work is that when we load a scene, when I load a combat scenario, it loads everything that exists within the context of the scene. So if we have like Rhea and Aya and Nezra, and we have like a bunch of spearmen and Nephiric shamans or whatever, it will load all the data needed by anything they can do. Right? And that means every particle and everything. And then that is put into a list in the main controller. Today is gonna be rough. I can feel it. And the way this works already, it doesn't really need much. So maybe we can just do it this way. Where I just have like a bunch of static methods, and then we just fetch them. That's it. This is an animation database. It returns LOT animation. Do I want to have an LOT particle database? I feel like I don't know. Actually, I need to take something out of the freezer. Man, I don't know. I don't know if today's gonna work out, but we'll give it a go. Brain just feels kind of fucked. Because I feel like the particle itself see right now the particle has a sorting layer, sorter layer override, sorting sublayer. I feel like those things shouldn't really be in it either. I feel like that should just be part of the reference. Like it should just contain a target and a position and a time. And then the particle let's make a new class. LOT particle data. This needs to contain an LOT animation. And then put the layers there. So it's a... I don't know if the... Oh, maybe the particle needs to have an override. Maybe. I'm not sure. And the reason for that is, like... What if there are particles that are... Well... Maybe it doesn't need that. Because the reason it would have an override is because it is attached to a target. And if the target's layer changes, then the particles layer needs to change. But that means that if we are attached to a target, then we should use the target's information instead of the particle data. It might need a transparency thing. What else does it need? Does it need much more? I feel like it needs... I feel like I need to make this... into classes. Because it needs behavior. No. No, the particle data is just like this. And then we need an emitter, and the emitter controls the behavior. Just like we have like spells and we have animations and we have effect objects, we then have an effect. The effect controller is effectively the emitter. And here we just need a similar thing, but for particles. So that we have one thing that controls like the position, and then it contains all the particles, and those are relative in position to the emitter. And therefore, we might not need to have a target in here. That might be for the emitter. But I do think it needs these things. I do think they need to render themselves. Probably. But I'll be right back. So yeah, I think I might stop. Today might be a write-off. I do feel better today, but it's like you've been to the gym, except the gym is the library, and the day after, you're like raw and sore. That's what my brain feels like. Like I said, I've been ill for a few weeks, and I think it's finally getting a bit better, but not today. Anyway, it's stream. Anyway, whatever. Until next time. Bye bye.